Everyone said the missing Apache horses were gone forever. But one cowboy refused to believe it. After weeks of searching across the wild frontier, he returned all 200 horses to their rightful owners without asking for a single dollar in return. The Apache Chief stood in complete silence, then offered the cowboy a gift so unexpected that it changed his life forever. What happened next became a story the frontier would never forget. The first rays of morning sunlight spread across the wide frontier valley, turning the rolling grasslands into a sea of gold. Horses grazed peacefully near the Apache settlement while smoke drifted gently from cooking fires. It was a calm beginning to what should have been another ordinary day. Then everything changed. A young rider came racing into the village, his horse breathing heavily from the long ride. "The horses are gone," he called. "The northern pasture is empty." Within moments, the quiet settlement filled with worried voices. Men and women hurried toward the open fields, hoping the report was a mistake. But when they reached the pasture, only scattered hoofprints remained. 200 horses had disappeared during the night. The loss reached far beyond the missing animals. These horses had been raised with patience and care over many years. They carried families across long distances, helped gather food, and represented memories passed from one generation to the next. Every family in the settlement had cared for at least one of them. The Apache Chief stood silently at the edge of the pasture, studying the ground. He knelt beside the tracks, then slowly rose. "We will search every valley," he said calmly. "We will not lose hope." Before long, word of the missing herd spread across nearby ranches and trading posts. At a small frontier store several miles away, a cowboy named Ethan Walker had just finished loading supplies onto his wagon when he overheard the conversation. "Did you hear?" one rancher said. 200 Apache horses vanished before sunrise. Another man shook his head. "No one will ever find that many horses again. They could be anywhere by now." Ethan remained quiet. He had spent most of his life working with horses. He knew they rarely disappeared without leaving signs behind. The old store owner noticed the thoughtful look on Ethan's face. "You are thinking about searching for them, aren't you?" Ethan smiled. "If those horses are still out there, they left a trail." The old man folded his arms. "It will take days. Then I will spend days. It could take weeks. Then I will keep riding." The store owner chuckled softly. "You have always been more stubborn than most." Ethan laughed. "My father used to say that patience solves problems that hurry never can." He purchased extra food, filled his water canteens, packed blankets, rope, and supplies for his horse, then secured everything behind his saddle. As he prepared to leave, the old store owner walked outside. "I cannot pay you for this journey," he said. "I am not looking for payment." "Then why go?" Ethan looked toward the distant hills where the missing herd had last been seen. "Because someone is waiting for those horses to come home." The old man smiled with quiet respect. "Then may the trail lead you well." Ethan tipped his hat, gently guided his horse onto the dusty road, and rode toward the endless frontier. Far beyond the rolling hills, hidden from every searching eye, 200 horses grazed peacefully in a place no one had yet discovered. Their journey home had only just begun. For the next several days, Ethan followed the faint trail across the open frontier. The tracks were difficult to read. Wind had covered many of the hoofprints, and light rain had softened the ground in several places. More than once, the trail seemed to disappear completely. Still, Ethan refused to give up. He had learned long ago that horses often followed water, fresh grass, and safe shelter. Instead of rushing, he carefully studied every broken branch, every patch of flattened grass, and every fresh hoofprint that crossed his path. Each evening, he made a small camp beside a stream, caring for his horse before preparing his own meal. His father had always taught him that a loyal horse deserved gratitude after every long day on the trail. On the fourth morning, Ethan heard a weak whinny coming from a narrow grove of trees. He followed the sound and discovered a young colt standing alone beside a fallen log. The frightened animal had become separated from the larger herd and was too nervous to find its way back. Ethan spoke softly as he approached. After a few quiet moments, the colt allowed him to place a gentle hand on its neck. "There you are," Ethan said with a smile. "Your family is still waiting for you." He gave the colt fresh water and led it with him, hoping it would help guide him toward the rest of the herd. Late that afternoon, Ethan climbed a rocky ridge overlooking a wide green valley. He stopped in disbelief. Far below, hundreds of horses grazed peacefully beside a winding stream. The missing Apache herd had not been stolen after all. A powerful storm had frightened the animals, sending them far from home until they found a safe place to gather. Ethan smiled with relief. "You are safe," he whispered. Looking over the peaceful valley, he knew the hardest part of the journey was still ahead. Now he had to lead all 200 horses home. At sunrise the next morning, Ethan began guiding the herd out of the hidden valley. He knew that moving 200 horses too quickly would only frighten them, so he chose a slow and steady pace. The young colt stayed close to him, and the larger horses calmly followed. Each day they traveled only as far as the animals could comfortably manage. Ethan stopped often beside streams so the herd could drink fresh water and rest. He checked each horse carefully, making sure none had become tired or wandered away from the group. As the long line of horses crossed the frontier, ranchers working in distant fields stopped and stared in amazement. "Look at that," one farmer said. "Someone found the missing Apache herd." The news spread from one settlement to another. Before long, people were standing along the trail, quietly watching Ethan lead the horses home. Many tipped their hats in respect, but Ethan simply smiled and kept riding. By the afternoon of the third day, the Apache settlement appeared beyond the hills. Children playing near the edge of the village were the first to notice the herd. "They're coming back," one child shouted. Within moments, families hurried from their homes. As the horses entered the valley, joyful voices filled the air. Children ran to greet familiar horses, gently wrapping their arms around their necks. Parents smiled with relief, grateful that every animal had returned safely. Standing near the center of the gathering was the Apache Chief. He watched quietly as Ethan guided the final horses into the pasture before stepping down from his saddle. Ethan removed his hat and offered a respectful nod. "I believe these horses belong with you," he said. The chief looked across the peaceful herd, then back at the humble cowboy. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then a warm smile slowly appeared on his face, and everyone sensed that this meeting would be remembered for many years to come. The Apache chief slowly walked toward Ethan, his eyes filled with gratitude. The entire village stood in respectful silence as he stopped in front of the cowboy. "You brought every horse home," the chief said. "Many believed we would never see them again." Ethan smiled gently. "I only returned what already belonged to your people." The chief nodded. Most men would have expected a reward for such an effort. Ethan shook his head. "My father taught me that doing the right thing is its own reward. I could not have ridden past knowing these families were waiting." The chief looked at the gathered families before removing a finely crafted leather bracelet from his wrist. It was decorated with careful beadwork that reflected the traditions of his people. He placed it in Ethan's hands. "This is not payment," the chief said warmly. "It is a symbol of trust, friendship, and gratitude. From this day forward, you will always be welcomed among us as family." Ethan accepted the gift with great respect. "I will treasure it always." Smiles spread throughout the village as children gathered around the horses once more. That evening, everyone shared a simple meal together, celebrating not only the return of the herd but also the beginning of a friendship that would be remembered for generations. Many months passed, but the story of Ethan's journey never faded. Throughout the frontier, people spoke of the cowboy who returned 200 Apache horses without asking for anything in return. His honesty inspired others to help their neighbors, no matter where they came from. The friendship between the ranchers and the Apache community continued to grow. They shared knowledge about caring for horses, working the land, and preparing for changing seasons. Families who had once known little about one another now greeted each other with warmth and respect whenever they met. One autumn afternoon, several children asked the Apache chief why Ethan was always welcomed with such honor. The chief smiled as he watched the horses grazing peacefully across the valley. "He returned more than our horses," the chief said. "He returned our hope that good people can always find each other." Just then, Ethan rode into the village for another friendly visit. The children ran to greet him, and the chief welcomed him with a warm embrace. As the sun slowly set behind the distant hills, the valley was filled with laughter, friendship, and peace. From that day on, people remembered that true wealth was never measured by what a person owned, but by the kindness they shared. One honest act had created a bond that would live on for generations, proving that compassion leaves a legacy far greater than any reward. Thank you for watching this inspiring journey from the Old West. Ethan proved that true character is revealed not by the rewards we receive, but by the choices we make when no one is watching. By returning what was never his, he earned something far more valuable than money. He earned trust, friendship, and a place in the hearts of an entire community. Stories like this remind us that honesty, kindness, and respect can build bridges where fear once created distance. Even the smallest selfless act can leave a lasting impact on generations to come. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more original Western frontier stories filled with courage, compassion, unforgettable adventures, and meaningful life lessons. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We would love to hear from you. If you had found the missing herd, would you have returned the horses without expecting a reward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Until our next Old West adventure, take care of one another, choose kindness whenever you can, and keep the spirit of the frontier alive. See you in the next story.